Today we're going to take a look at the top 10 questions that you guys ask me the most, either through DMs or through comments in videos. There's some pretty good ones on here that I see come up a lot, like 4xe or Ecodiesel, or things like, why don't you put chains on when you're stuck in the snow? Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Casey, and today I wanted to go through some of the reoccurring questions that I see in the comments, or you guys send me DMs or messages over on Facebook. I try my best to answer as many of them, and when you guys are asking questions, I like to try to help out where I can. I do get a lot of messages, but feel free to drop me a DM or shoot me a message over on my KC250 Facebook page, and I'll do my best to give you guys some information and provide some answers. Today, I wanted to go through some of the reoccurring ones that I noticed over the last couple of months. There are a lot of them, but some of them seem to crop up more often than not, and shoot this in a one take. I was hoping to do like a trail recon style one take coffee and chat with you guys. I probably should have grabbed a coffee. All I've got is this pen and paper here, but you know, let's get going and go through some of these questions. First, I just wanted to recap some of the big overarching questions, like why haven't I been adventuring over the last few videos? We've done a few product reviews. Here we are once again in the garage shooting a video. We've got a lot of travel restrictions going on right now in British Columbia, and I'm doing my best to respect them, whether or not we agree or disagree with them. That's what I'm doing, and I'm hoping to get back out on the trail very soon. We've got some big mods planned for the Jeep. We've got a huge one that is currently on its way, and we're going to be heading over to Epic Adventure Outfitters to install that, hopefully in a few weeks. And Chef John and I are going to take the kids out camping here actually tomorrow locally, and so we're going to have a video around that. I think we're going to do a video around what kind of gear do we bring and how do I pack it and where we're at, because I haven't done a gear update with you guys in quite a while. And as far as other travel plans, when can we have a meetup? Things like when are we coming down to the United States? Well, as far as meetups go, that's sort of at the hands of some of our restrictions and decisions. But as soon as we get to a point where we can have a large group of people, Sean from the Storytell Now and I have been wanting to have a big meetup somewhere in the lower mainland. And I keep trying to get Paul over at Epic Adventure Outfitters to host a pig roast. So maybe you guys slide over to Instagram and shoot some messages to Epic saying, we want a big pig roast, because that would be awesome. As far as the United States goes, I don't know. As long as the border is closed, we can't make any sorts of plans. However, I did just get approved for a media badge for SEMA 2021 in November. So I'm really, really hoping that I can get down to Las Vegas and go to SEMA this year. That is a big bucket list item for me, and I'm so happy to have gotten a media badge for that. That's super cool. So if you're going there, let me know. I'm going to do my best to get down there. I'm hoping everything sort of clears up by November and we can head south of the border into the United States. And there's a lot of other stuff that we want to do while we're down there. Sean and I have been talking about multiple different trips. We want to do some of the common bucket list stuff that we haven't done, like the Rubicon Trail, go to Moab, and there's a lot of other people that we want to meet up with and meet for the first time, as well as vendors that want to shoot some videos with us. So trust me, guys, as soon as we can get down to the States, we're going to be heading south, especially as we get back into the snowy winter weather, late fall, and our trails start to clog up with snow once again. We had a pretty rough winter of off-road wheeling, and I am looking forward to some warmer climates and drier climates this coming winter. So we do have a lot of trips planned for the summer already. We are going to be hitting some of the mountains and into the inland areas of British Columbia, some longer trips. Sean and I are talking about doing the Mackenzie Trail again. Not again for me, but again for Sean, and I really want to see that. So that might be something in the works. And we're going to be heading out to the Rocky Mountains again this summer as well. So lots of big trips planned for the summer. And as soon as we can get down south of the border, you bet, we're going to be heading down there. So let's get started with my top, it's actually a top 12 list. But there's 10 questions, 11 questions or so that I see come up all the time, either through DMs, and I'm answering with the same information over and over. So I figured, well, let's throw them into this video and then everybody can see what we're talking about, and you guys can hopefully get some benefit from watching this video. So first off, this is a big one with the release of the 4xe or 4xe. I can't remember exactly the proper pronouncement for it, but 4xe or Ecodiesel. I have some thoughts on this. Do keep in mind my thoughts might be a little bit biased because I've already bought a Ecodiesel, but honestly, after watching a lot of videos about the 4xe, I'm not as excited as I was originally. It seems to be getting around 21, 25 miles per charge. So if you aren't familiar with the 4xe, it's a plug-in hybrid. So you can run it fully on electric, or you can run it in hybrid mode, or it will run on the 2-liter turbo gas engine. So it gets around 21, 25 miles on a charge. I think this Jeep is a great option if you're wanting to commute or you need to commute a lot with your Jeep. It's good for around the city where you can come back and charge it. People are getting 900, 1,000 miles out of a tank of fuel because they're constantly just taking it home, recharging it, and taking it back out again and not actually getting into burning into the fuel. The challenge that I see with this, and this is why I think the Ecodiesel is a better solution for me, is as soon as you hit the highway, as soon as you start going on long trips, you're going to be using a lot of gasoline and a lot of fuel, because that hybrid is only going to be so good on the highway, and I don't think it's going to provide the same fuel economy that the Ecodiesel does, because we know roughly what the 2-liter turbo has for fuel economy versus the Ecodiesel, and we won't dive super deep into a comparison of them today. But also, as well, the 2-liter turbo isn't going to be as fuel efficient with things like larger tires and a lot more weight from bringing cargo with you. So for me, the Ecodiesel has had very minimal fuel economy losses by adding 37-inch tires and bringing hundreds of pounds of gear, my roof rack, my rooftop tent, everything we need. And it really doesn't feel the weight at all as far as power goes. It's still powerful. It still just goes at lots of torque, and I really do enjoy it. So for me, we do a lot of long distance traveling. Like, you guys don't see behind the scenes 10, 12-hour drives to get to some of the places that we off-road. And I really do enjoy driving the Ecodiesel on the highway, and the torque is really good and the fuel economy is great, even with the larger tires and extra weight. So for me, I'm leaning towards the Ecodiesel, but I think the 4xe is a great option if you want to have a Jeep that you do a lot of city driving, a lot of start-stop driving, and you can get to where you need to go every day, come home and charge your Jeep again. You're going to save a lot on fuel running just off the electric and the batteries. And then there's also the 392. Now, I'm not planning to trade my Wrangler in for a 392 Wrangler anytime soon, but I am very interested in the 392. I think it's a great engine option now for the Wranglers. I'd really like to see if they put it into the Gladiator. I think if they put it into the Gladiator, or perhaps maybe even release another higher performance version with some bigger axles, Jeep, bigger axles, more horsepower, it would get pretty expensive, but I would definitely be thinking about swapping or maybe buying another Jeep with that engine in it. Now, that's not going to be anywhere near as fuel economic or have as good fuel economy as the Ecodiesel, but I'm a pretty big V8 fan as well, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to have something that's more for rock crawling, off-roading, big axles, big tires, lots of horsepower, and where I don't have to be so worried about the long distance travel aspect of it, because maybe we'll trailer it, or we're not needing to have as much fuel for a long trip. But that's where I kind of am sitting at. I think as far as overlanding goes and distance travel, I think the Ecodiesel is the winner right now. I think as far as fun factor goes, the 392 is probably the most fun, but I haven't driven one, but I do have a Corvette with a V8, lots of torque, lots of horsepower. So I can only imagine what a Jeep is with all of that in it, and that sounds like a lot of fun. And the 4xe, great commuter Jeep, and for around the city if you can plug it in lots, but I don't think you're going to see the same fuel economy on long distance drives as the Ecodiesel. All right, the next question I get answered. The next question that I get asked all the time are, what size tires are on your Jeep? So on my Jeep, I have 37-inch by 12.5-inch on 17-inch rims. Those are the tire size. That's the tire size. They're Nitto trail grapplers. Now the thing with the Nitto trail grapplers are the 12.5 is almost 13.5 inches wide compared to other tires in a 37 by 12.5 inch size. So they're quite a wide tire, which I really like. I was originally looking for a 13.5 inch tire, but I settled on the trail grapplers at 12.5 inch after looking at their specs and them being almost 13.5 inches wide, even though advertised as 12.5. So the other sort of sub questions around this are what brand. I use Nitto. I have no affiliation with Nitto. I have BF Goodrich Cam2s on my JK, same size, 37 by 12.5 inch. They do look a lot narrower because they are closer to a true 12.5 inch tire, but that's what we're running on the JL. And have I re-geared my JL? And the answer is no, I have not re-geared my JL. It still has the 373 gears. And yes, that is correct for everybody who keeps trying to correct me in the comments. It is 373 gears on all Ecodiesel Wranglers. It's not 410s, even on the Rubicon, the gears are 373. With 37s, I don't see the need to spend the money re-gearing. I do believe it would help the fuel economy a little bit, help the power a little bit, and I've spoken to other people who have re-geared. Paul from Epic Adventure Outfitters has re-geared his Gladiator Con, and he has, I believe, 456s in it. And it does help, but it's quite a bit of money, and so it's a little bit lower down on the priority scale for me for some other mods where I want to spend some money. But maybe one day, or definitely if I went with larger axles, larger tires, I'd be re-gearing for sure. All right, and that kind of leads us to another question, or the next question around my wheels. So do your Nomads leak at all? So I am running Teraflex Nomad wheels on my JL, and on them they have two valves. They have an air up valve, which is just a cap over a standard Schrader valve for airing out, but they also have a air down valve. And the air down valve you can set with a hex key to stop letting air out at a certain PSI. So I have mine set to 13 PSI, and when I air down, they just stop letting air out when they hit 13 PSI. Now the question is, do your Nomads leak at all? And there have been people talking on various Jeep forums, as well as messaging me about their Nomads leaking. And the most common thing that I've seen is that people didn't use the right torque specification when they put either the air down or the air up valves in. The valves have a little rubber O-ring on them that compresses as you tighten up the valves, and you only need to torque the valves to 20 foot-pounds or pound-feet of torque. And so it's quite easy to over torque them because you can't get a socket over the air down valve. So you have to have either something you can torque them without a socket, more like a wrench that you can torque them with, or you have to be very careful and know roughly where 20 foot-pounds is on your torque wrench and just using a regular spanner wrench to torque them down. And so if you over torque them, what happens is that rubber O-ring gets damaged. And if it gets damaged, then it starts leaking. And Teraflex does warn on the instructions as well as their installation video to be careful not to over torque it, and that you can rely on that rubber O-ring to seal up and not let any air out. So generally, people seem to be over tightening them, and that's what leads to leaks. Week over week, my Jeep sits in the driveway because I don't drive it a lot when I'm not off-roading, and the air pressure generally maintains the same unless we have a shift in weather and the air pressure drops a little bit with colder or warmer weather, but generally it stays the same between trips, and then I'm usually airing down, airing up, and resetting the tire pressure. Next question, are you happy with your Teraflex shocks? So I recently put a video up. We swapped out the front shocks on my Ecodiesel JL from the Teraflex Falcon 2.1 monotube shocks to the Falcon 3.3 shocks with the adjustable reservoir. And you can set that to a firmer or a softer ride. I've been running the 3.3 shocks in the rear since I got my Jeep, so over a year now. I honestly don't have any complaints with them in the rear as far as they don't leak, they don't cause me any problems, and generally the ride has been decent. However, I have been battling with different spring ratios, trying to get the right lift and spring rate dialed in for my Jeep's weight, as well as having the heavier engine in the front. And we just recently put the 3.3 shocks in the front because they had to be altered and re-engineered to have a shorter reservoir so that it didn't interfere with the battery box on the passenger side. And so I haven't really been running them that long. As well, at the same time, we put all new springs in the Jeep. So the new springs that we put in are Clayton Off-Road's 3.5-inch Overland springs, and they are a lot firmer than any springs that I've used before. And they're definitely a lot firmer than the Teraflex 3.5-inch springs I had in before. And those were gas model springs from Teraflex, so they were over compressed and the ride was pretty bouncy and there was a lot of rebound. They just weren't sitting at the right height, so I was definitely excited to get those new springs in. However, it's really hard to tell if those new shocks in the front are making much difference because of just how drastic the change is swapping to those new springs. So I was going to give it a little bit more time before I gave some assessment, and I wanted to see what it was like putting on a softer setting or a firmer setting when we're on some of the back roads heading to trails, as well as how they perform on the trails. And I wanted to get used to the firmer springs from Teraflex before I really started trying to evaluate the different settings that you can set on the Falcon Shocks. So my answer is I have no problems, no complaints with the Teraflex Falcon Shocks. However, we've just put the 3.3s with the adjustable reservoir in them, and so I haven't had enough time with them. So keep an eye out. I'll probably mention them in upcoming vlogs along the way. I don't think I'm going to do a dedicated video to them, but I do like to drop comments along the way when we're out off-roading and shooting vlogs. All right, this is sort of a funny question, and this is for people that don't know my Jeep. And some people have mentioned, why does your Jeep sound like it has a lifter tick in the engine? Well, my Jeep is a diesel Jeep. It is not a gasoline engine Jeep. It has the 3-liter turbo Ecodiesel, and therefore it sounds like an Ecodiesel engine, or just a diesel engine, which has a lot more clack and noise than a traditional gas engine would have. And some people mistake that for a lifter tick or some sort of engine issue if they don't know that it is a diesel. And the diesel is pretty new. It's only been out a year, and so not everybody's familiar that we have a diesel option for the Wranglers. And a lot of people that I talk to are surprised that they finally put one in and are actually glad. I really do enjoy the diesel. It is noisier than the gas engine. You can definitely hear it. When the windows are down, you can hear the engine as you rev up in the RPMs. I really like it. I like the sound, and it doesn't bother me at all. And other than that, that's why it sounds like there might be a lifter tick. Next question, number 6. Do you still have a check engine light? Some people noticed in our last off-road video that a few of the shots still had a check engine light when I was showing my point of view of the dash. And yes, I still do have a check engine light. This has been going on for several months now, and the problem is that we're waiting for a part. I've had it to the Jeep dealership for diagnosis a couple times. They diagnosed it incorrectly the first time, and the part they ordered was incorrect. And so they ended up having to bring in another part, which is, I guess, back ordered with a lot of parts, just taking forever. The part we're waiting for is part of the emission system. It is the SCR, which is the Selective Catalytic Reduction. I did write it down here. It's basically the piece that makes it so that it's not putting out as many emissions. I'm not going to explain it in depth, but essentially along the emissions output, they spray the DEF into it, the diesel exhaust fluid into the exhaust, and then the next step is it goes through the SCR, which is supposed to reduce the emissions and, I don't know, put out less carbon dioxide. It's pretty new to me because diesels are new to me, and this is a new, I've always basically run gasoline engines, so I am learning a lot, but the SCR is, I think, $4,000 Canadian, they told me at the dealership, and we're waiting for one to come in, and then they're going to swap it out. And that is why the check engine light is still on, because there's a valve or something stuck open, and it's not getting the right readings. So we're just waiting for that. As far as performance goes, it hasn't impacted anything. I don't know if it makes a difference with fuel economy, but I definitely want to get rid of that check engine light before the winter because I cannot auto start my Jeep with the remote with the check engine light. So if you didn't know that, if your Jeep has a check engine light or doors open, the remote start on your key fob, it won't start. So that is a little bit annoying, but as soon as we get that part, we'll have it down to the dealership and get that swapped out. But yes, that is why we still have a check engine light. Parts are in limited or short supply right now, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting that replaced. That'd be great. All right, question number 7. Can we get Chef John's cheesesteak recipe? Chef John has cooked us up some amazing meals on the trail over the last few months, and since he started bringing his 4Runner out with us, one of the reoccurring ones is his cheesesteak. I don't know. We'll have to ask John. John and I talked a little bit about maybe putting some recipes on dirtyanddangerous.com under another section. So go check out the site, keep an eye out there. I'll let you guys know if we do put some stuff up there that is not selling merchandise and we start putting other content up there. But one thing that I was wondering was, would you guys be interested in a cooking only segment? I was thinking about when we have Chef John out, doing a dedicated shoot while we're out on an adventure just of what he's cooking and talk a bit more in depth about the meal he's preparing, how he's preparing it, and then obviously how it tastes afterwards. That would be something that would be fairly easy to shoot while we're out on an adventure. It would be a long piece to add to a vlog, so I try to keep just a recap and a few shots going during a vlog to keep it flowing and exciting. But we could always shoot an extra segment and maybe release it midweek and just have John specifically showing us what recipe he's cooking, how he's cooking, and then obviously tasting it afterwards. Let me know if you guys want to see some cooking segments added to the channel. I'd be happy to do that if there's enough interest, we get enough views, and it makes sense for the audience, you guys. All right, I get a lot of questions about what do I think of Chef John's 4Runner. So Chef John has, I believe it's a 2018 4Runner. It's a TRD, not a Pro, a TRD off-road. I don't know all of the differences between 4Runners and the different features of them, but I know he selected that specific one because it had some features as well as it was a good price to feature ratio without going all the way to the TRD Pro off-road, or no, Pro, I can't remember, Pro Plus or something. There's a couple higher models. But what do I think of it? Honestly, John likes it, so that's the most important thing. John really likes his 4Runner, and we've started to put some mods on it. We had it lifted. We put some tires that are almost 33 inches on it. My thoughts on it are it's really expensive to make it comparable to a Wrangler. So thousands of dollars have to be spent to lift it and make clearance on it and essentially get it to somewhere where a stock Rubicon is still, I think, more capable, more ground clearance, lockers from the factory, and you can fit 35-inch tires on a Rubicon without any lift. So in that regards, modifying it is expensive. I think, honestly, the interior, and you guys are probably gonna get a lot of comments from anybody who's a Toyota fan. I think the interior is super outdated. The screen on it is the same. The console screen, the multimedia screen is the same as my Prius. So as soon as I get in it, I immediately think of my Prius. And as well, I think that it is long overdue for an interior refresh. I think it's been all the way back to 2010 or 2012. They haven't done anything with the interior. So even if you're buying one in 2021, they haven't updated the interior in a long time. It still has things like you still need to put a key in it to start it. There's no push button start. You've got to fish the fob out of your pocket, which to me is just super annoying when all cars pretty much now come with a key fob and push button start. And as far as capability goes, like I said, you got to put a lot of money into it just to make it close to being capable. It's capable as a stock Wrangler, and especially a Rubicon, because a Rubicon is super capable with its electronic lockers and disconnecting sway bar and built-in clearance for larger tires. So for me, I don't know. The 4Runner is not something that I would gravitate towards, but John really likes it, and to me, that's all that really matters. And I'm happy to help him work on it and add mods and take it out on adventures and drag it out of things with my winch when it can't make it over. With that said, there's still some mods sitting over at Epic Adventure Outfitters for the 4Runner, which we do need to get installed. There's a front bumper and a winch, which I do plan on going over there with John and shooting that, and we'll upload it as a vlog. It's a lot of fun. over at Epic, just shooting, hanging out in the shop. Christian and Paul are great. And I really appreciate having them as friends, and that we can go over there and get stuff done. So keep an eye out for that. Number 9, what is your coffee setup? Well, I've kind of been evolving my coffee setup, and I love coffee when I'm out off-roading. Well, I love coffee anywhere, anytime. And I should probably have a coffee right now, but I don't. So what is your coffee setup? Well, I have been using a Nespresso automatic coffee machine, which uses little pods that I buy, and I bring it along. It's nice and compact. It fits in my Pelican cargo case nicely. It's not too tall, it's not too wide, doesn't take up a lot of space. And I power that off my Jackery Explorer 1000, which has a 1000 watt inverter. The Nespresso uses about 800 watts while it's heating up and while it's pouring the water through the espresso pod. As far as power consumption goes, it uses about 7% of the Jackery to heat up and about 2% after that for each shot that we pull through it. So generally we make 4 to 6 shots for breakfast because each person wants a couple in their cup as well as some hot water. So we can burn through 25 or 30% of that battery each day for breakfast, and then I fire it in the Jeep and charge it. But you do need something capable of delivering at least 800 watts of AC power in order to use the Nespresso. Jackery works great. The onboard inverter in the JL wouldn't work, so you'd need something else or an additional inverter that has a higher output capacity if you want it to use the Nespresso. But if you have a Jackery 1000, it's fairly cheap to pick up an Nespresso, and it's easy, quick, and makes pretty good coffee out on the trail. So that is my current coffee setup. The age-old question, number 10, electric or gas chainsaws? I think that electric chainsaws have evolved a ton over the last few years, and I recently purchased a DeWalt 60 volt chainsaw, and it has a 16-inch bar on it, and I think it's great. It is a really good trail clearing chainsaw for light to moderate use. Now, if you're going to spend 8 days clearing a trail that's completely covered in trees like the Alexander Mackenzie, I think that a gas chainsaw may be superior just because of the longevity. I do have 2 batteries for my chainsaw as well. I do bring the charger with it, so if I do deplete those batteries, I charge them while we're out on the trail. However, the use to battery ratio of the DeWalt 60 volt is about 4:1. So if you want to have continuous use while charging your batteries, you need to have 4 batteries because that's how long and how much runtime you'll need to keep your batteries charged and having continuous use. But the big benefits are, well, I don't have to worry about starting it. I don't have to worry about fuel and oil and bringing that along with me, and maybe it's spilling or stinking up my Jeep. The electric, you just pop the battery in and it goes. It's ready to go every time. Low maintenance, that's what I like. And I don't have to bring a bunch of other stuff with it other than a charger and a couple extra batteries. So as far as just casual trail clearing, there's a fallen tree, some branches, whatever I need, the electric works great, and I really do enjoy it, and I think it's the best option for me. But you may have a different opinion. Some people are pretty attached to their gas chainsaws, which is fine. My personal opinion, electric is the way to go, but make sure you get a high voltage one. The one I have is 60 volt with a 16-inch bar, so it's pretty comparable to a gas chainsaw. Tons of torque. It'll cut through anything the gas chainsaw will. I've watched a couple of videos comparing gas versus electric. The DeWalt is one of the most powerful and best cutting chainsaws there is, and that's why I purchased it as well. I just seem to be pretty tied to the DeWalt ecosystem. I have a lot of their tools, so I can reuse their batteries. Not sponsored by DeWalt in any way though. That is just what I prefer. Next question is, what roof rack is on your soft top? I do get asked this a lot, and I wanted to address it because it's going to be the focus of an upcoming video. And I've made a couple of videos already about the rack. I do have the Gobi rack on there. I am not happy with it at all. They do advertise that it works for a soft top, but honestly, when you put a rooftop tent up there and some cargo and you're on some pretty bouncy, rough logging roads heading to trails, as well as once you get on the trails, there is a lot of movement in that rack because there are no supports that can attach to the roof because you have a soft top. Now, Gobi does make well, actually, the rack has integrated into it some pegs that screw down and support it on the top of a hardtop. They also make an additional kit for the top to support it even more, but they say it works with a soft top, and I don't think it works with a soft top. Personally, I think that over time it's going to break welds, and I think there's parts already bending on it because it can't take what I would say the abuse, but honestly I'm not abusing it at all, and we haven't been on any crazy off-road trips with it. And I feel like I'm using it for what it's intended for, and I don't think it's going to hold up over time. So I've got something else that we're going to be doing, and you're going to have to keep an eye out for that. I don't want to talk about it until we get it, but it's going to be a pretty big focus of a upcoming video, I assure you, and we will be swapping out the Gobi rack. So if you want to buy one, no. Anyways, let's move on to the next question. This is about my rooftop tent. Are you happy with your Freespirit Recreation Evolution rooftop tent? So I have the latest model from Freespirit. I will give you guys a full disclaimer. The channel is sponsored by Freespirit. They did send me that rooftop tent at no charge to try out and use. But overall, I've been really happy working with the company. I like to work with companies that share the same vision and goal, and that is participating with me as part of making videos, being responsive, as well as working with us at upcoming events or working with the channel to go out and do stuff. Unfortunately, with the border being closed, we're a little bit hamstrung with not being able to go visit Freespirit or some other companies that we work with, but they've been great to deal with, great communicating with them, and I think that their tent is really high quality from what I've seen with other rooftop tents. My favorite parts of it are just how fast it goes up and how fast it goes down, so that I can get to camp late, I can set it up, and boom, I've got my rooftop tent ready to go in under a minute. It's super easy to use. The Evolution has enough space between the top and the bottom that I've actually been able to add a 3-inch gel memory foam mattress to it, so that has made my sleeps a little bit nicer. I think the mattress that comes with it is fine if you're lighter, but I'm 6'2" and well over 200 pounds, and it just wasn't thick enough for all of my weight. So I added a little bit thicker mattress to it. It fits in there, which is great because the Evolution has a couple extra inches between that middle crossbar, and I really like it. So we had some other questions around, does it get condensation in it? It can. When it's really cold and if you sleep with all the windows closed, you will wake up with condensation. I just open all the windows in the morning and let it air out before I pack it up, and when I get home I let it air out and dry. But when it's warmed up a little bit on some of our trips, I sleep with the windows cracked a few inches all around. I like the fresh air. I like the, being out in the woods, in nature, in the mountains, and I get a really good sleep with fresh air, and I'd rather just hunker down a little bit more in my sleeping bag if it's a bit cold. And if you have a bit of air flowing through it, you don't have to have the windows open more than a couple inches. I have not woken up with any condensation in it yet. And the other question was, is it good for taller people? As I just mentioned, I'm 6'2", so I'm on the taller side, and I have lots of room, lots of foot room, room down at my feet. There's several inches. I can't remember exactly how long it is off the top of my head. I think it's 88 inches in length. But I have no problem fitting in it. Lots of room. I have the wider model, the 55-inch model, which is 55 inches of internal width. And I would say that is good for 2 adults if you want to be fairly close sleeping together. I'm going to be taking it out with my daughter Maddie here actually this weekend, and we're going to sleep in it. And I think there's lots of room for an adult and a child if you're sleeping in it. I wouldn't try to fit my entire family in it. I think it'd be too tight for 2 people and a child. So that's my opinion. I think the rest of the tent is great. It's really, the tri-layer walls on it are really dark, so it keeps out the light in the morning, and you kind of end up sleeping in a little bit later than maybe you should. So I do end up setting my alarm or I won't wake up. And other than that, it's been really good. I enjoy just how fast it is to set up and how fast it is to take down. And it just really helps me with time, because when I'm shooting videos out on the trail, time is everything, and the less time I need to spend setting up and messing around camp, the more I can focus on making videos and getting shots of stuff and making awesome vlogs for you guys. And the last question on this list, why don't you put chains on when you're in the snow?